great to be here. I want to first call out the amazing speakers that we've already had. Tom and Morgan are phenomenal. I'm upset that today is the first day that I've got to meet both of them. They're just phenomenal talent, excellent, very polished talks, and so I apologize that mine is not even close. One thing that you'll find in OT environments and industrial control systems, it's not pretty by any means, but it's operational and it gets the job done, and that's what we're going to do here today. So, first we're going to start off with a little bit of history. Who here is a history nerd? We got some nerds. All right, cool. So we're going to talk about some of the important things, and I like to start off with history, especially in operational technology and industrial control systems. Who knows what OT and ICS is? All right, we got some hands up. So I see some, kind of wavering. So we'll talk on that real quick, and we'll start off with history in it. And these are some of the very famous ones that everybody knows about. And if you don't, well, it's a good intro into what we're going to get into. Starting off with the Colonial Pipeline, as you can see, it was somewhat monetary. 4.4 million is not too terribly bad, I guess. But this one was very fascinating in that it had some major world implication and impact. According to CISA, this was one of the most important attacks on the OT network at the time, and really kind of brought us into an era where we decided that we needed to do more with just not the IT side of the house, but the OT side of the house. OT is operational technology. Again, I said we'd get into it. This is the things that do all the fun stuff when you go anywhere. So let's think about like a water filtration plant. You've got a bunch of these little IoT devices or OT devices that are actually filtering the water. They're making sure that the pressure is running properly, that the filtration is doing what it's supposed to, that there's not any contaminants in the water, things like that. So those are going to be like your operational technology side of the house. This one's a fun one because it was ransomware. Not all of these will be ransomware, but for anyone who knows me, I'm obsessed with ransomware. I've done a bunch of incidents in ransomware. I just think it's one of those things where it's bad guys do bad guy things, and this is one of those. So here's the timeline of it. 100 gigabytes of data was exfiltrated. I don't know about you guys, but 100 gigabytes is not a lot when it's a Steam game, but when it's actual data, that's a ton of data to get out of a network. Especially something it's just Colonial Pipeline. It's just gas and oil and whatever. So you're like, well, what does that really matter? Oh, well, their clients, their PII, the data that's associated, the money that exchanges hands, those are the kinds of things that, obviously threat actors are going to sell, and they're also going to get some extra money on that. We said that this was one of the ones that CISA called out, and for those of you who don't know who CISA is, they help at a national level for critical infrastructure, which is industrial control systems and operational technology. This shut down 5,500 miles of pipeline, got rid of over 45% of the East Coast fuel. We're kind of in a fuel crisis right now. I'm not supposed to say it, but we kind of are. Something with the Middle East. And so we're kind of feeling those effects already, but this was even before that. This is something that happened years ago, and I don't know if you guys felt it. I was not living in New England at the time. So that's something that I kind of heard about it. I wasn't super aware of it. Obviously I was following it because, again, obsessed with ransomware. But you probably felt the effects of it. You probably dealt with the gas prices and the oil prices going up and didn't even realize it. Also, 5,500 miles is not a short distance. That covers the distance for me to go from here to Salt Lake City, which nobody ever does. But this was a big one in terms of this had national coverage, obviously, because of the implications and impact of it. This is also one of the big times where the president actually intervened and declared a national crisis. We haven't really seen that in too many incidents, especially to this scale. So this was one of the first ones in history to ever do that. And then through all of this, they actually got everything up and running. But if anyone has dealt in industrial control systems or any of this stuff, it's not always once you get it up and running, you can think of it in terms of a garden hose or something. When you turn it on, it takes a little bit of time for the water to actually get where you want it to go. This is just, think about 5,500 miles of trying to get that oil back to where it needs to be at the proper flow rate, without contaminants, without any fractures. It became a huge overhaul. So not only was there monetary loss in the 4.4 million that they actually paid out, it's also the downtime that they had, the repair costs, all sorts of other pieces that came into this one. So again, this is just one of many that we're gonna cover real quick. Stuxnet, who here knows about Stuxnet? Oh yeah, it's like one of the famous ones. So we'll go pretty quick through it. Again, talking about Iran for whatever reason. You know, this was like one of the first, I can't say the first because there's one that was actually found out recently to predate this, and they think it was testing for this, but we're still unconfirmed on that. But this is one of the first ones that actually proved that cyber, you know, the little ones and zeros could cause physical damage and real harm to people and to physical assets. Something that was not really done before, not even really thought of. Again, another fun little timeline, June 2009, this is when we first see it. We actually know, again, that they were testing it prior to that, but legally, we don't know who came up with it, whatever. And then in 2010, we see the variant, which was really designed to spread faster and cause more harm. That is the weaponized one. The first one was more like the prototype of like, in theory, does this work? The second one was like, we know this works, now we're gonna do something fun with this, like who's ready to watch? And then we see it on June 17th where that's when it gets publicized to the world, like, hey, someone who developed this is being shady and doing things we don't really like, so let's talk about it, let's solve and figure it out. And then that 2010, late July is when it became publicly known, and everyone was like, yo, this is kind of crazy, sketchy. We should probably look into this and actually figure out how we're gonna put defensive measures in place, which was really just, I mean, everyone says that there was proper measures in place. Most of it was just training. Don't pick up USBs from the ground and put them into your computer, guy. I don't feel like I should have to say that, but especially at security conferences, that is a thing that people like to do. One of my employees, he actually asks me to bring him back USBs, and he judges the ransomware or malware from the conference. He's like, oh yeah, this was like a 6 out of 10 conference because of the technical capability from this. All right, dude, good for you. NotPetya, this is actually my personal favorite just because I also like linguistic stuff, and this was very much targeting linguistics. And it's also one of the first use cases that we saw where not Russia was doing something that they probably shouldn't have been doing. So unlike traditional, this was designed to be destructive, no recovery options. So this is also, we talk about industrial control systems. A lot of it prior was, Stuxnet was also destructive, but for a different reason. It was rendering them inoperable. This is on a different scale where I'll call it like smash and grab. Ransomware is more like smash and grab. I'm coming in, I'm taking as much as I can get, and then I'm leaving. And maybe you'll find out about me, maybe not, but I'm trying to sell the stuff that I'm getting from it. This is a little bit different. This is, I'm going in, I'm like lighting the place on, like this is Joker, leaving the hospital kind of thing. Like just lighting it up, walking away, laughing the entire time. Like this is a little bit different mentality from the threat actor than we had seen prior. Again, timeline on this one. What I think is really cool with this is this was specifically targeting Ukraine and Ukrainian-speaking people. So what they did was, it was a supply chain attack. They got into attack software that then was being used across all of Ukraine, because Ukraine was required to use this specific tax system, similar to like the IRS or something, but not nearly as evil as the IRS. That's a joke. So they got into that tax system. They then said, hey, anyone who has Microsoft installed with the language pack of Ukrainian, we're gonna ransomware it and we're gonna just destroy everything. The problem with that is, if you work for an international company like I do, you probably operate in some way, shape, or form with that Ukrainian software. That's just how you have to do, because Ukraine requires you to have that tax software. So everyone who had that suddenly was impacted to a large scale, and we saw it actually hit a bunch of really big names. If anyone looks into this, Maersk is like the big known one that they talk about. FedEx, of course, and whatnot. And then this expanded so much more than Ukraine, because they were specifically trying to target Ukraine at the time, but this expanded. I mean, this was an international crisis. Very fascinating in the time, and it was proving that it wasn't for financial gain, which is something that a lot of threat actors are mainly trying to do nowadays, but this one was not. It was a prime example of cyber warfare at the new age. And then post-attack, obviously, there have been all sorts of different variants of Petya, ransomware that have come out from this that we follow and we manage and maintain. In terms of the largest GDPs in the world, this is one of my favorites. Everybody thinks, oh, USA is #1. No, cybercrime is actually, just kidding, no, cybercrime's 3. So it's USA, because always USA is #1 in everything, right? China's #2, because again, they can't be #1. And then global cybercrime is #3. So take, Germany, France, Brazil, put them all together, not even 3rd place, like combined, which is crazy to me. You're talking trillions of dollars. And I don't know about you guys, but I am not a trillionaire. So I can't even fathom how much money that would be in a room. But when you put them in like little circles like this, you're like, wow, that's a small circle, but still pretty big compared to the other ones. Again, this is the talk that we're going to be going over today. My name is Chris Hansen, not from Dateline NBC. And I am a security operations manager at Veolia North America. We do environmental services as well as industrial stuff around electric, water, wastewater, hazardous waste, nuclear energy, all sorts of fun things. I am part of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, so I help out with solving problems with the U.S. Coast Guard. I am an incident response lead for the Wisconsin Cyber Response Team, where we help out with SLTT, state, local, tribes, and territories, as they have incidents such as ransomware. Again, I'm obsessed with ransomware. Phishing, vishing, any of that kind of stuff. We offer it as a service like a volunteer firefighter to the state and as well as federal based. And then obviously in the community stuff, I attend the DC 207, huge fan of the area because I moved out here recently, but prior to that I was on, and still am, DC 608 out of Madison, Wisconsin, an advisor for that group. And then I also co-own a company called Aetherwolf Security. If you care about it, we can talk about it later. 80% of OT attacks have physical consequences and were attributed to ransomware, and impacts rose in the last 15%, whatever. So 80% of OT attacks have physical consequences. Now, again, I don't know about you guys, but the worst day, when I worked for Northwestern Mutual, I used to tell my boss that the worst day we ever had was, you got ransomware, you lose some money, but like nobody dies, it's a silly job in terms of, like we're always worried about whatever, but nobody dies. Life's good, like we're good. OT environments, that is not the case. If I have a bad day, I've got sites that have like, a couple hundred people at them at all times, and they could go up like boom in flames and 15 miles around it, the whole city's decimated. That's not minimal impact. That's something that's a little bit more realistic, and you have a bad day here, you got a really bad day. So there is a little bit more weight that comes into incident response in these kinds of scenarios. You can't be complacent. You can't, I love how Tom was talking about it earlier, where the incidents that come in, a lot of them go from high severity, but really they start at the low severity. You see these low alerts and they realistically become big problems. It's the same kind of thing. You can't be complacent in this kind of a position. You can't have that alert fatigue. You can't sit and wait. But you also need to be aware of, I want to be aware of my employees, make sure that they're also taken care of, that they understand the criticality of this. We do tons of safety training. I take them out to sites. I'm like, hey, look, this is a wastewater plant. It's shit. So things like that. And you'll come to find when you're doing industrial control systems, it's not always the glamorous side of cyber. It is working somewhat blue collar and working with people who are in the blue collar field. they don't care about what a cyber is. They don't care about what a phishing is unless they're going out to the pond. Like they're not interested in what we have to say until you show them something like this. 80% have physical impacts and can hurt someone at the operating facility. That's kind of a big deal. So IT and OT, they have to mesh, they have to work together. There are always going to be conversations about like who should, zero trust and separation and blah, blah, blah. There's never zero trust in anything. Even our air gap networks that are, more intense facilities like the nuclear facilities, there's still going to be a network internally that can be compromised, and you have to think through those kinds of ways. Again, Stuxnet was a great example. They're like, oh, it's air gap, there's no problems. Let me introduce you to a USB, or someone all of a sudden has to plug in their phone to charge it, and next thing you know, you're fully compromised. Like there's not, you have to take those pieces and vectors into account as well. So quick terminology for you guys who don't know. PLC is just logic controllers. That's the brains of a lot of these OT devices. It's basically, it was really good to see the AI conversation right before this because it's very similar. LIF, if there is water in here, make sure that it goes through. If there's not water in here, turn off so that we don't have a problem. If there's too much water, restrict the bandwidth, things like that. Very easy underlying way of putting it. HMI, this is one that you'll see a lot, human-machine interface. This is you hands-on at the keyboard, and this is the device that connects the computer side to the actual physical operating technology or industrial control system. This is where most of the threats happen is HMI. So these are almost always going to be like Windows machines. Sometimes they're Linux, but they're like super outdated Windows machines because for whatever reason. And those are the ones that you're gonna usually be targeting as the HMI. SCADA, you probably have heard SCADA. If not, I would just Google it because mine's very, very broad version of this. And then IX, which is just more network control systems. And so we're not going to touch too much on these, but just some basic terminology so you guys have some underlying understand. So now we're in incident response. So who here actually does incident response for a living? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We're feeling it. Tonight we're vibing, right? So this is the life cycle. This is what I love to show people. The life cycle does change in IT environments and OT environments. It's not the same, and we'll kind of discuss why. But you're going to understand that the life cycle needs to be followed. You need to be able to we all went to school and we all learned like the scientific method. It's very similar. You come up with a hypothesis. We're going to do some experimentation. We're going to cry when it doesn't work, and then we're going to work through and figure it out. It's the same kind of life cycle that you have for incident response. You have a theory of how the threat actor might have got in. Usually it starts with an alert. It shouldn't always start with an alert. You should be a little bit more proactive, but that's neither here nor there. Starts with an alert, you kind of work your way back on how they got in, look at, hypothesis, what threat actor, whatever you may do, and then you come through and you go through your whole life cycle. Now, in IT environments though, the primary goal is to restore data and services quickly. That seems very general and very easy. In OT environments, the primary goal is to ensure safety and maintain operational continuity, which may mean accepting longer recovery times. We will do a thought process here in a minute that will kind of explain some of that. But again, going back to the colonial pipeline, you can get the threat actor out. You can get the ransomware out of your system. You can remediate and take care of all of it, but it still takes time for you to get that oil back up and running. It takes time for you to get the water filtration systems. Some of them can take weeks to like spool up to where they're actually working properly. We have a site where to go from not working at all to fully operational, it takes almost 2 weeks to ramp it up like 5% to 10% every day and make sure that everything is within normal operational, variations. So it's just not as simple as like, hey, we got the threat actor out, now we're back at it. It's like, no, it takes time to actually like validate, confirm. Safety is paramount. Again, physical implementations or implications to all this as well. So again, IT teams and OT teams have to be best friends. If you're not, then you're gonna have a really hard time dealing in all this. I will say like we've meshed them, but some other companies will have a strict OT team and a strict IT team, and that's just, it's rough. There's no sugarcoating it. You want people who are trained on both sides of the house and can have conversations and be able to hop in and work on both sides of the fence. A SME, or subject matter expert, on one side of the house is invaluable to have during an investigation. Free resources in terms of industrial control systems and OT environments. I'll pause here for you guys who are interested. There's so much out there nowadays. Like when I first was looking into this, I was like, what kind of resources exist? And I was having a hard time finding it. And then I just it was like all of a sudden the light bulbs just went off, and I found like 4 or 5 people who just post online like literally everyday new stuff. So be sure to get into some of these things. You'll get some hands-on in some of these environments and understand why it's a little bit different. But me just obviously telling you like, hey, an electric plant is kind of rough to work in, it doesn't carry weight until you actually try to play around and understand like the physical implications of it. Excuse me. Differences. So differences in IT and OT environments. Again, just some quick terminology: Modbus, DMP3, OPA or OPCUA, and MQTT. These are just some protocols that you may see in an OT environment. If you see them in an IT environment, that's awesome because you have an incident on your hands. That is not normal, that should not be happening, and you should definitely investigate that. So in a OT environment, this is very common stuff. You'll see these happening all day, every day, but you need to understand what they do and why they matter, and kind of dig into the bottom of that. So we kind of talked over this a little bit earlier. I should have, again, met with Tom, because this would have made our lives a lot easier working on the same thing. But incident severity, if you've never worked in incident response, these are kind of a very general, vague version of how you would have them set up. So critical is like the, oh my gosh, the sky's on fire, we need to be investigating this right now thing. High is like, oh, something doesn't look right, we should probably look into it. Medium, it's like, hey, we got time, we can get around to it. And then low is something that you definitely ignore. Again, that's a joke. You don't ignore low, but most people do tend to push them off for like a couple days and not really care about the low priority findings. But you'll find that, again, with ransomware, most of your low findings in a network are the real threat actors. That's what they're doing because they're trying to go underlying, they're trying to be nice and quiet, and then next thing you know, bam, you got an incident on your hands, and you're got a long weekend ahead of you. But this is kind of the very easy way of explaining the escalation path. Now this is where you're all gonna join in with me. So we're gonna do a thought exercise. Incident report on a water filtration facility. This is some of the information that we see. Again, it's gonna go to an HMI. We see an external actor has confirmed unauthorized access to your network. What do we think we would classify this incident as with this information? High, critical? I'm hearing. Yeah, both are valid in my, confirmed access, definitely a worry, something that we should think about. Before I get too far into it, I should say that this is all theoretical. This is a thought process. We're going through the idea and ideologies of incident response. So this is not like definitive how it should always go, and every environment's different and should be tailored, blah, 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 all that fun stuff. Again, highs and criticals. I think that makes total sense. I'm on board with that. I would definitely say critical in terms of there's confirmed. That's the key word for me, is you have confirmed it already. You've already started doing some of the investigation and it is confirmed. Unauthorized access is also the other key word there. Now, let's take it a step further. An external actor bypassed the firewall, gaining persistent access to a SCADA device. I definitely would claim that as a critical. Yeah, like they bypassed the firewall. Like, should my employees be doing that? No, definitely not. Do they sometimes? Not anymore. So yeah, I would definitely say that as a critical. You're seeing actual malicious intent at this point, and you're also seeing persistent access to a device, which is, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want someone having persistent access to anything of mine. We'll take it to the next step. we're just adding potential impact at this point. Well, I guess we added a little bit different, but potential impact. Risk of chemical overdosage or unauthorized valve manipulation leading to contamination of local water supply. I don't know how big the municipality is, but the answer should still be the same. It is a critical. Yeah, I would say, hey, if they've got access to this and they can actually manipulate the valves and they can manipulate the chemicals, they can cause physical damage and potentially hurt people. That's a critical in my book. I mean, that's just 101. And then we're going to add the last part. You determine the threat actor doesn't have familiarity with SCADA, and you determine they're not a threat. All of a sudden, they're a low. Normally in an IT environment, you see a threat actor, you're gonna be getting rid of them and you're gonna be kicking them out of your network. In a SCADA environment, in an OT, and an industrial control system environment, if they don't know what they're doing, regardless if they have persistence or not, as long as you make sure that they can't actually manipulate that data, they can sit there and monitor all they want. They can see my valves for all I care. It makes no difference at the end of the day. Should threat actors sit there and stay? Absolutely not. But it becomes a much lower priority if they can't actually manipulate the data, if they can't actually put people at risk, and if they have no familiarity. You'd be surprised on how many threat actors say they know SCADA, but they really, they found one exploit on Rockwell Automation and suddenly they're experts. It's like they've never seen a PLC, they've never touched anything like that before, and they get into it and they have no idea what they're doing. That's not really a threat to us. Is it a problem that they have persistence? Absolutely, but we'll get around to it. That's not the top of our priority list at that point. Again, that's all theoretical, just giving you an example of how it differs from IT and OT. So just heads up. Yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't it be like a pretty sizable risk that they could sell it to someone who does know how to use the SCADA?
Great question. So wouldn't it be a risk if they could sell it off to someone who does have access to it? Yes. The odds of that are much lower than you'd actually think. So the amount of threat actors that are actually targeting and utilizing the OT environments for malicious intent are almost always, right now at least, again, let me preface, right now, nation state and sponsored threat actors. So they could sell it to, someone in the Middle East or Russia or Romania or, whoever is anti-American at this point, which, okay, that is a valid response. But again, if they're only getting in and they have limited persistence, they have no ability to manipulate any of the data. So again, they can't actually mess with the valves at that point. They can't mess with the chemicals. They can't do any of that stuff. At that point, they're just monitoring the data. I mean, you guys you all pay for your electric bill. It's basically the same as monitoring your electric bill. You get to see how much data you're using or how much electricity you're using, and that's really all they can do at that point. So could they do something more? Theoretically. Is it possible? Yes. Improbable? More likely improbable. So does that answer your question? Cool. So yes, again, flip priorities. We went from being like, hey, we're super worried, we got to kick the threat actor out, we care so much about that, to, hey, we care more that people have clean drinking water every day. Because downtime is a big deal if I have to kick them out and it's going to take me 2-3 weeks to get back up and running to get people fresh drinking water. So it just complete mentality shift in how you would do real incident response in these kinds of situations. Operational mandate. Reliable operations must always take precedence over rapid security assessments, forensics, or immediate response activities. You have to be talking with these municipalities like, hey, can you support an incident of 2 weeks where we might have to take you offline and bring you back up? 9 times out of 10, they can't support it for 24 hours. So you are going to be fighting with the threat actors. So in a scenario where the threat actor does know what they're doing, you got an even bigger issue because you can't take them offline. You have to figure out how to, very much scalpel them out to get them, removed from the network and keep it continuity running in that kind of a scenario. Confirmation before action. Again, you have to confirm with these municipalities or these facilities that they can be able to take that kind of a hit. That's a security risk, but more importantly, it's a safety risk. I go back to that 80%. 80% of these kinds of incidents turn into someone getting hurt. I care more about that than losing some money. And that may be a controversial opinion to my shareholders and stakeholders, but I do care more about the safety of people. And at the end of the day, most of us in this kind of an industry do, and that's why we prioritize that always, and we should always prioritize that. And again, safety first is what we should aim for and will strive for. So, transferability, all the core understanding of how to do incident response and the life cycle transfers directly from IT to OT. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Everything you learn will move over directly into OT. So you guys, if you already work in incident response, you can switch over to OT today and you will be just fine. You'll have to learn some terminology, you'll have to learn some new tools, you'll have to learn how to not pull all your hair out, but you'll get there eventually, or so I'm told. The three main pillars of an OT investigation are similar to IT. Finding anomalies, we find the problem, we are going to work on remediating the problem. Bigger than that, though, is normalizing data. The amount of people that I see go into these OT environments and they're just like, they've never seen it before, and they're just like, that looks malicious, I'm gonna get rid of it. It's like, you probably should double check what it is before you just, like, again, safety first. Before you contain anything, before you call an incident, let's double check and validate, is this safe? Should you be doing this? Is it yours? Yeah, a lot of times, like you'll find out that they may be calling out to an external vendor who's working with that kind of a tool, and it's sitting there beaconing for whenever updates come onto your network, and it's like, ooh, that looks scary and shady, but then you find out that it's just the vendor doing terrible security practices. And then develop response methods. If you do not have an incident response playbook, I strongly advise that you not only create one, but multiple, just so that you actually are testing them, and you should be validating them at least annually. I would recommend more regularly, but compliance people are compliance people, and they say once a year, so that's probably the minimum that you'll do. At the end of the day, you should have an IRP, an incident response playbook or a plan, and you should be validating it and going through the steps and making sure that it actually applies. Also going through, Tom mentioned it earlier, these people, when they have time constraints and when they have the criticality, they overlook things. It's very easy to do when you have an actual incident and all of a sudden you have a time constraint, you have these priority lists, you can't have the drinking water go away from the city. What are you going to do? We have a playbook, we've tested it, let's go through the steps. It's not always gonna be a one-to-one, but it gives you a rough guideline that you'll probably ignore on occasion, but you at least have a rough guideline that you can start with and then deviate as necessary during that specific investigation. So, we talked about a little bit about some of the history. Now we're up to more recent attacks. This happened earlier this year. Poland Energy infrastructure attack, 30 facilities targeted, and it was OT and PLC specific. This is one that we haven't seen in a while. We've seen a lot of IT, and then they pivot over to OT, again, not knowing what they're doing, and then the tabloids read, IT and OT hacked. It's like, well, yeah, they got to the OT side of the house, but they didn't know what they were actually doing. This one's very different. They were specifically targeting that OT side, the PLCs, and they were from a little known company called Rockwell Automation, something like that, who have been in the tabloids a lot lately. But that's a good example of the threat actors are specifically targeting these vendors. They're doing more supply chain attacks than we've ever seen before. I mean, who hasn't seen a couple of those this past week, am I right? So the more that we see these supply chain attacks, the more problematic it will be. This one was interesting because there was no widespread blackouts, but it's specific because Poland has been preparing for this, and they have a phenomenal incident response playbook where they were able to manage it. They actually had people phenomenally. They have people who are just stationed like every 10 or 15 miles in Poland, where if one of the lines went out, they could easily just go and physically turn a line back on without any cyber implications. Thank you. And I don't know why that Poland was focused so much on that. I would assume it comes back to similar like NotPetya, also their vicinity to someone named Russia. But they actually had they are taking some of the cyber out of some of their OT environment just to validate that it is safe, secure, and that they have the human element in these kinds of incident response, which is not always a bad option. We're also seeing this as a huge thing. So renewable farm and CHP plants, VPN was accessed. This comes back to they were just trying to wipe, they were trying to be malicious, and they were going through the VPN instead of some of the other locations that we see. Yeah, it's interesting one, not super crazy. It was mainly just to cause, disruptions and damage, nothing super particular in this kind of scenario. Statecraft, so geopolitically, this is what we're seeing on average. 90% of orgs are adapting to security strategies, which sounds great on paper, but when you, again, talk to an auditor, what does adapting mean? It means that they've got it in the pipeline. It means that I've got concepts of doing something right and doing security in the future, but when's the actual timeline on that? We don't know. So seeing a number like 90%, you're like, oh, that's awesome. Like people actually care about security now? No. They're still trying to figure it out, and they're doing the least amount that they can because that's just how businesses are still. Espionage and surveillance has definitely gone up. We're seeing this massively. So just be aware on your environments if you're not tracking geopolitical events, if you're not tracking threat actors who are specifically targeting your sector or things that you are interested in. That is something that should be on your radar, and you should be aware of it. Also, emerging threats. This one is one of my favorite ones. So I've mentioned Iran quite a few times. It's like context, clues. We, in this year alone, since the conflict in the Middle East, have seen a 44% increase of attacks on a daily basis from Iran. And I'm not saying Iran and friends, their little posse. I'm talking one specific threat actor has gone up 44% on a daily basis. That's not minimal numbers. That's quite drastic. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be aware of and following and validating that they're not getting into your infrastructure, they're not able to get into your infrastructure, and they're not able to compromise anything that is even in your sector realistically. So be aware of these kinds of threats. They are emerging. Just, again, track them. And do the best that you can. And of course, if you need help or have questions, feel free to reach out. One of the things that I'm a huge advocate of as well, so I love ransomware, but more than that, I actually love purple teaming. If anyone hasn't heard that we did a drinking game once upon a time where every time I said purple team, they took a shot. I will say that was the most fun I had watching them get sloshed. So purple team is like the most important thing that I think anyone can be doing nowadays. Everybody thinks about like the cool pen testing stuff. It's like the cool, sexy side of cyber. It's like, yeah, I get to hack the good guys or hack the bad guys or whatever. I get to do the hacky things and be cool. Neat, that's cool and all. But the one problem that we're seeing still with pen testers is they do these really cool reports, or they got like this ego lift where they're like, I have to prove that I'm a really good pen tester, so I'm just gonna destroy your network in like 10 minutes and I'm not gonna actually like help you figure out what the problems are or give you a good write-up. I've seen that too often, and we're stepping it back a little bit. What I want to do is I actually throw up like a whole MITRE framework, and I'll say, hey, let's target each defensive measure specifically. Let's go down the list. Can you defend against this specific type of attack? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, cool. Do you want to be alerted on it? No? Okay, cool. Like, that's fine. You don't need to. But let's go through the list in each one. Do you have a defensive measure for this? No. Okay, cool. Are you alerting on it? Yes. Okay, cool. Well, we're making progress. If you don't have an alert, we'll create an alert. But we go through each one of those individually. We do an actual threat emulation of what these APT groups would do, and then we work it back. If you aren't doing that type of work yet, I would highly encourage you to do that, because it's going to not only make you more, cyber resilient and, safety posture better, whatever buzzwords you want to use, but it's really going to also showcase your depth in defense. You're going to be able to go to the auditors, and when they say, oh yeah, we were able to do this thing, you say, no, you weren't. I can prove it because we have X, Y, and Z in place, and you're just, clout chasing or whatever you're trying to do. We've had that with a few pen testers who are like, I'm way better than I think I am, and then we go back and show them that they compromised us, and we're like, you weren't even close, bud. Nice try. So here's some of the purple team life cycle, or people that would be involved in life cycle. So if you haven't done one, this is a rough outline of how you could do it. You have an event or exercise coordinator. Everyone is included in this, so shareholders, whoever it may be. I would say get all of your key important people in one room and actually decide what is important in your organization, especially in terms of like disaster recovery. What do you need to bring back up? One of the things that I found out while doing incident response for municipalities and just incident response in general, the number one overlooked thing, well, I'll ask you, what do you think is the number one overlooked thing when you're trying to bring devices back online? What would be your number one? Yeah. You need to be on site. Yeah, definitely need to be on site. So people go on site, you're bringing back devices up online. You're doing disaster recovery efforts, so you've got the firewall, everything's contained at this point, but you're actually bringing everything back up. What is one thing that you would think is like the most important thing that you need for the network to get started again? Backups is a good one. Little louder, sorry. Credentials, okay, what? Power is a great one. I like that a lot. So power is often overlooked. I won't sugarcoat that. The number, and this is, I know this is a, pick my brain kind of question, so I apologize. I hate those, but the number one is actually payroll. I found that if I don't put payroll back online very quickly, people do not want to help us. They suddenly find out that they're not getting paid over the weekend. People aren't getting their money. They can't feed their kids. They can't do whatever. They suddenly aren't interested in the incident response recovery process. We often overlooked that when I first started and was doing incident response. That wasn't even on our radar because, most of the municipalities were like, you got to make sure that, the domain controllers are up first or the backups or whatever. Obviously, you need to have backups, and if you don't, then you're building from scratch, which is a pain. Been there, done that. But yeah, if people aren't getting paid, they don't care about how awesome and cool you are being the incident response guy. They're going home. They're not going to help you. So again, like you want to get all the people who are going to have those types of conversations in the same room and be like, hey, payroll's important. We have a jail that obviously if that failed, like all the doors would open up. That's kind of a problem. So conversations like that. Get everyone in the same room. Have those kinds of conversations. Red team, blue team, detection engineering to develop the alerts to be able to find the problems. Blah blah blah, and then you get everyone together. One really cool tool out there that is already available for IT and OT specific is Caldera. So there's a bunch of purple teaming and emulation stuff that's out there. There's paid stuff that's out there that does awesome work. I'm not going to call out any names, but they're out there. It's not hard to find. But in terms of OT, there's really nobody that's doing it other than Caldera, and it's open source. So that just gives you the ability to take it and play with it. I can say that I've used this on like satellite stations. I've used this in like nuclear facilities. I've used it all sorts of weird places, and it works great. Is it perfect in every scenario? No, but neither are we, so that's fine. This is something that you can run today with and actually play around and get some experience with. So I would highly recommend it. It's free. Why not do it? Critical aspects of OT pen testing. So I have to call this out because, again, with auditors, they love just saying that we pen test all the things all the time. You can't take a regular pen tester and throw them in an OT environment and have them scan the same way, because if they Nmap it, boy, oh boy, you're going to have a rough day. An Nmap in an OT or an industrial control system environment will very likely crash everything. And then again, we talked about what happened to the Colonial Pipeline, that couple weeks of getting them back up and running. You're going to be doing that, and then you will also have an RGE, which is a resume generating event. So you'll have a new employer. So definitely need to understand that, again, safety is paramount in all of this. You can't just go in there guns a-blazing, hacking all the things, doing whatever. You really have to be more passive, more blasé. You need to really understand the vulnerabilities that are on the network. So you can look at those PLCs, you look at the version, take it offline, and then actually understand or get a snapshot of those and work it offline. I've done that as well. It works great. And then active testing. If you are going to active test, you need to be able to throttle your inputs. That's one of the biggest ones that I see is these pen testers, they go in half-cocked and they're like, hey, I'm just gonna, shoot all the packets at this thing. Well, that specific PLC is only designed for 1-2 megabytes. So that's going to definitely destroy it. And we have seen that. So that's just something that you also need to be aware of. Lateral movement is also so much more fun on an OT environment because that's where you need to focus on pivoting from IT to OT. Most people are used to the lateral movement, especially Active Directory is one of my favorite ones in the IT environments. Active Directory is not as common in OT environments. But there's so many PLCs and HMIs that are connected together that you can just go from Windows device to a random Linux box to a PLC and whatever. It's more back to the old hacker style where you actually have to know the different operating systems, know the vulnerabilities, get more familiar with that. So just food for thought there. Challenges and best practice, sensitivity, legacy equipment. So legacy equipment's a fun one. I've got a site that has equipment from 1928. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not that old. And I have never seen something more insane in my life. The amount of cables that I saw was just awesome to see. But then I'm I can't even look at this thing because if I do, it'll go offline and we're screwed. They've done updates to it. So it goes from analog to digital to analog to digital. So when you're trying to pen test something like that, the odds of that are extremely minimal. Actually getting good telemetry from that. So specialized experience comes into place. If you know people who actually have done something like that, get those right people in the room and actually do pen testing in that style, because legacy equipment does make a huge difference on some of these sites. And just be cautious of going into a legacy style environment. And then of course compliance. I have to shout out compliance because there's always compliance in the room. You guys are awesome at making sure that we do what we're supposed to do even when we don't want to do it, so thank you. Steps for a successful OT pen test: define the scope, ensure expertise, passive assessment, analyze and validate, and then reporting. I know that I go through this very quickly. I just want to cover 2 pieces in this. You should be at least validating all this stuff annually. If you have a site, you should go and validate it annually. The amount of times that we have these municipalities and they say that they've actually audited it, we've come to find they haven't actually touched it in 10 years. They've just gone through a checklist of hey, do you guys do this? Yay. Do you not do this? Boo. You need to actually get someone on site, validate these things. Hands on keyboard, validate the threat, and validate everything around this. And then reporting. Again, pen testers are cool when they actually give you good reporting. Most of them are, I shouldn't say most, a lot that I've interacted with lately have been very much egotistical and trying to prove that they're the best hacker in the world, that they can do all these cool things. Cool, I believe you. You don't have to show me. I want a good report. I want to know what my defensive measures can improve on. I want to know how we can improve our mean time to detection, how we can improve our telemetry around the logs that you're getting. Those things are more important to me at a long-term scale than you just being the best hacker in the world. While that's cool and all, that doesn't provide value to us if I'm a customer from a pen testing perspective. So if you are going to pen test in an OT environment, also have that mentality that your report is the most important part to the client, and it should show them how good they did or how they could be so much better with X, Y, and Z. Coming soon. So this is something that I've been wanting to build out. I have a really good buddy of mine, Oren Niskin, who we want to do an attack and defense on OT environments. So he's built out a really cool OT lab. He's like all sorts of like man-in-the-middle malware attacking stuff, which is really neat. We want to do like a live attack and defend and have that become like a talk. I don't know if that's something that would interest you guys or you'd even want to see. Yes, I'm seeing some yeses. All right, so I guess that'll be something that we work on in the next little bit. But I really want to showcase that like in OT environments, you can still have rapid response. The amount of people who come up to me and they're like, yeah, like you're not gonna see anything, to Tom's point earlier, like it could be 3 days before you get an alert. I'm like, no. We can see pretty much like instantaneous if we set it up properly and we know what we're looking for and manage and again, regulate that kind of information and normalize that data that comes in. And then, yeah, we'll try to do an active investigation next time where it's a live demo and we do all that fun stuff together. And then this is his LinkedIn. I always promote him because he's like one of the coolest people. He does do OT assessments, so pen testing and validation and stuff. With my employer, I currently can't do that, so definitely would be a good person to reach out to about if you need a assessment like this. And then, this is some of my info, so if you need to go to the website or whatever, feel free to scan that, and then we're good to go. So, oh, I totally forgot. I have to call out the Wisconsin Cyber Response Team because, again, we just help out so much in the community. If your employer is there or if you're ever in the area or need help in that kind of vicinity, always feel free to reach out to them. They help out with, again, SLTT, state, local, tribes, and territories, but also private businesses where they help out with doing like assessments, so pen testing as well as reactive sides, so incident response. But they also help out with the playbook creation and validation. So again, if you're not validating that your playbook is doing what it's supposed to be doing, these are the kinds of resources, the people that you can reach out to that will help you with those kinds of things. And now we're to the fun spot. So yes, questions? Yeah. Oh, no. So this is something that we actually had a meeting with government officials a while back where we've been pushing to do this for a while. So the question is there a Maine equivalent to the Wisconsin Cyber Response Team? The short answer is no. Most states don't have anything in terms of a voluntary cyber response team that can help out with those kinds of things. There are states that do. We've helped develop them, you know, Missouri, Michigan, Minnesota, I think Nevada has one now, Utah, Texas has a private version of it, but they have one. And then Washington State, I believe. So we've helped develop those. We've talked with national and local authorities to try and create like maybe a New England collective one, because like in terms of like driving, you could still drive to most of the places quicker than you could even in Wisconsin. But yeah, that's not something that has come to fruition yet. It's something that we're still pushing for. So reach out to your local authorities, your governors, and say, hey, since you don't care about cyber, let me help you care about cyber, and show them the ways that these kinds of happen. You can also reach out to your, mayors or whatever, and look at starting up even locally and do something around that. And of course, if you want help or conversations, we can chat more on that. It's something that I helped develop while I was there. So, perfect. Yeah, sounds good. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, great question. So what does the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary do? So we help out with maintaining mission continuity in whatever way that may be. So if they need assessments done on like satellites or boats or whatever, sites, ground control, we help out with stuff like that. So vulnerability assessments as well as pen testing. We also do defensive measures. So if they have a mission that is ongoing and they need active help, we will step in and work on those. A lot of it is more around awareness and training and developing people and understanding like exactly these kinds of threats, like in terms of OT or things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff. I would recommend looking into it. If you guys need help, again, feel free to reach out. We can chat more on that. You don't have to live near a port. That was one thing that I thought was really interesting. And if you have a boat or if you have a plane, they're also more likely to encourage that you join, because you can help the mission in other ways rather than just cyber, because they're looking for other people who can help out with that as well. So, any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Man, great question. So new sysadmin to a manufacturing facility, wondering about like training and resources. I did post the resources a little bit earlier, but I'm going to call out the one that I'm most excited for that's coming out. Sands has a bunch, but who can afford Sands? I mean, unless your employer really likes you and wants to invest in you, you're paying $10,000 out of your own pocket, and boy, oh boy, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have that kind of capital at the moment. CompTIA is actually coming out with an OT Plus later this year that will also help with SCADA systems as well as understanding OT environments and industrial control systems. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to. They're currently in the beta testing for it now. We'll see how it comes to fruition, but it looks very, very impressive from what I've seen thus far. So that's the one that I would call out for cost. So, and with that, we're all wrapped up. So thank you all for your time.